Welcome to the Black Country Business Podcast. I'm Andy Hemming.
And I'm Lewis Haydon.
Today we're going to be talking with Peter Higgs, the Executive Director of BNI for the Black Country and Birmingham. He'll be sharing some of his lessons in leadership and how to be successful at networking. You want to take notes on this one, guys?
Welcome, everybody. You are listening to the Black Country Business Podcast. And today we're talking about growing your business, but a different twist on growing your business. We're talking about networking. And who else than to talk about networking than Pete Higgs, the Regional Director of BNI for West Midlands and Black Country. Is that right, Pete?
Yep, correct.
Good. So for those of you out there that don't know what BNI is, I'll put it straight to Pete. Pete, in a nutshell, what is BNI?
Well, it stands for Business Networking International, and it's actually about people coming together to share their connections and contacts to help find each other business. Very simple.
And how long have you been doing this for?
7.5 years. I started the Birmingham franchise. I bought the Birmingham franchise back in 2013.
Oh, awesome. Okay. So what was the vision then when you first started? How come you decided to start this business rather than any other?
Can I give you a little background? I guess I was in corporate world. So I qualified as an accountant for my sins many years ago. I was in the corporate world as an accountant and finance director for multiple businesses and multiple industries. I got to the dizzy heights of managing director of a multinational plastics group, about 100 million turnover group, dealing with all the retailers. And got disillusioned, I guess. It's a popular story as you go around and speak to a lot of business owners that they didn't see the value in people, and it was like next contract, move on to the next contract constantly. It didn't sit well with me. I think I enjoyed the relationship side of the business. So to cut a long story short, I got out of the corporate world, decided I wanted to stay local. I was traveling a lot, both America and Northern Europe. So I wanted to stay local to my family, set up a small business locally, and I went networking. I went to the opening an envelope if somebody'd have me. It was get your name out there. But I gravitated quickly to BNI, enjoying the fact that the relationship seemed deeper and there was a lot of business being passed. So 3 months into joining as a member, I bought BNI in the region. As you do. Liked it so much, I bought the company.
Straight in there.
And I wanted the Black Country. I'm a Black Country lad, born and bred, but it wasn't available. So I bought the Birmingham area, and then Birmingham, Coventry, and then 2 years ago, just over, we bought the Black Country finally. So yeah, very happy now. I own the West Midlands. So
awesome. So it's still growing. So what's next?
Yep. Good. Next, the world, obviously. Yeah. So no, I've been asked that. I guess there's a lot of growth in the Midlands. I firmly believe in the West Midlands entirely. And there's a huge amount of businesses and growth coming from HS2 and just being the second city, really, I think, from Birmingham area. And the Black Country has been considered for a long time the poor relation, but it's number one in the country in BNI last year. And we're growing that massively and very quickly. So I think there's a lot of business to be had in the Black Country and pairing together as a West Midlands combined, really.
Really interesting concept of BNI. So we mentioned on a few podcasts before, haven't we, Andy, of this idea of people become raving fans of each other, and then people who are raving fans pass business on to the people that they're more fans of. So it's more like this know, like, and trust.
Yeah.
As that builds between people, they want to share more business between each other. So how do you see this BNI working? First of all, how does BNI work in your eyes?
Yeah, can I just say, for me, it's networking in general. And I don't want to put BNI on a pedestal or down in that respect, but all networking done properly works because of the way we operate. So it is very much a case of relationships. So when I go to other networking events and whatever else, it's about building those relationships with people you trust. So Lewis, if you know, a best friend of yours, Joe, and you fully trust Joe, and I've never met him before, I've got that trust in you, and you've got that same degree of trust in Joe. Do you know what? It rubs off, because I take your word that Joe's a good guy and he's going to do the right job. So it's that degree of trust, and the 6 degrees of separation, isn't it? It's not what you know, it's who you know. So for me, it's building a degree of trust that you can trust the person and their judgment. And then from there, not only will you pass them work, you'll work with the people they know. So I think that's the networking part, where too many people try and sell, and it's not about selling, it's about a relationship. And you won't buy from a complete stranger. You shouldn't buy from a complete stranger. And if you do, you one of the 3 or 4 times you'll try it, you'll get your fingers burned.
Yeah. I mean, especially with the Black Country as well, there's the well saying, is that the great saying that you always pass business between those people that you do know. So it straight away you'll go and ask somebody, ask a friend. Before we go onto Google, we ask a friend, do you know anybody who does this, who does that, who does business coaching, who's a good accountant that you know? And it's always great to hear their stories around it as well, rather than just a piece of marketing material. Because at the end of the day, Pete, anyone can go onto a website and say they're the greatest person, or change their bio on LinkedIn to how brilliant they are. But when people are actually singing that praise about you as well, for me, that's a great.
What is it they say? Reputation is what other people say about you when you're not there. And that's the reality of it. The majority of the time, if somebody says they're the best, they're probably not. If somebody else says they're the best, that's likely that they probably are. Yeah. And that's the problem half the time. When you self-promote, it's about other people telling you, because that's the reality of it, the truth. Truth comes out.
So when you're talking about passing business between each other, then something you just said a couple of minutes ago, how much business do you see get passed in BNI?
Oh, huge amounts. I mean, we did 35 million last year amongst our members, and that's not me, unfortunately. That's our members passing business to each other. We don't get any share of that. I've had people irate at me, thinking I'm taking a cut of it all, and it's very odd how people think it works. But
so the past 35 million. How many members have you got?
So currently 600, but at the time we had 430, I think, when we passed that 35 million. So 35 million shared amongst 430 members.
And what sort of members do you get? Are these just like solopreneurs, or?
No, we've got big business owners, turnover. I was going to say, so the smaller, smallish firms, 10 million, up to 10 million. And then we've got some national chains. So we've got like Marston's, so Picture and Piano joined, and Lost and Found, the Novotel, BMW are members. So there are some very large brands, but there's also some very small local businesses. And typically it's the business owner or the entrepreneur kind of thing that wants to make sure they get out and meet lots of different people from a wide range. So I would typically say it's a smaller business owner, but it works for everybody, but it's all about the right person. So if you're willing to put the effort in, doesn't matter what size business you've got, it'll work. But the reality, if you're not willing to make the effort, it doesn't matter what size business you got. It could be the biggest or the smallest, and it won't work.
That's interesting you say that. So is there a certain sort of person that makes BNI work really well, do you find?
I think I gravitated to BNI when I first joined, because they have a philosophy of give as gain. So if I give you business, you're more inclined to want to give me business in return.
Yeah.
And it's for the ones that don't like selling, but the ones that are willing to make an effort for somebody else. So imagine that, the Christmas morning, you want to see your kids' eyes light up and they've got the present they really want. The feeling that gives you is second to none. And I've got children kind of a bit grown up now, but you remember that feeling. Anybody else that hasn't got kids can still appreciate the feeling. It's that you get in droves in BNI just by helping others. So it's a great thing. So those people that enjoy that kind of thing, enjoy giving, enjoy helping others, will massively benefit from BNI. But if you're a taker and you're just kind of saying, I want, it's just the wrong place. Yeah. So I guess that's the thing. It's about having the right attitude to making an effort for somebody else that you're wanting in return.
Yeah, I guess those people that don't have that right attitude don't hang around very long either.
No, because it doesn't work for them, and other people start, getting a poor opinion, if you like. The only caveat I would say is, look, we're all going through different things at different stages in our lives. So different growth stage in your business, different things in your personal life. And the one thing I would make sure that people do is don't judge a book by its cover. Find out the reasons why, because many a time, especially in the past in BNI, people have assumed, whether they're not doing a lot, so they're not a very good person, and the reality is they could be going through a personal issue. So I'm also chair of a global movement in BNI for BNI Cares, which is focused on the mental health side of it and making sure that we try and help everybody. Because we lost an executive director in America nearly 2 years ago now to suicide, and nobody knew what's going on in their personal life, and it really hit home from us as a global organization, but actually for all our members as well. Nobody knows what somebody. How many times have you had like a friend or a family member, and nobody knows what's going on behind closed doors? When you see a marriage breakup, etc., and you're like, wow, you look so happy, and the reality is it's it's never quite how it seems, is it, if you're not careful? So I always say, make sure you take the time to get to know somebody, and the deeper that bond, the better the business side of it as well as the personal.
Amazing. Lots of opportunity. So I want to get to know more about your business journey personally as well, Pete. Obviously, you're successful at what you do, and you've got the successful franchises of BNI going as well. Before we move on to that, though, just so the listeners know, how do they get involved in BNI?
Yeah, you can go on to the websites. We've got bnibirmingham.com or bniblackcountry.co.uk. And on there, you can go and visit a local chapter. So just a group that's local to you. So there's not much traveling. At the moment, it's all online. So it's free to jump on a Zoom call and share those experiences with other people and get to know them. I think we don't want anybody coming in that hasn't experienced it for themselves and see what's available. But going on one of those calls, the groups then will tell you how to get involved if that's what you want to do. But it's not a pressure thing. It's like, we want people coming in with their eyes wide open saying, I could benefit from this, and I could stand the commitments. Because there are commitments. The biggest reason people leave BNI, believe it or not, is they get too much business. That's kind of crazy, but we've done exit interviews, and that seems to be the biggest driver, because people don't expect it that quickly. And I'm not saying quick as in, if they put the effort in, they get the return. That could be days, weeks, months, etc. But when they get it, it's like, how do I cope with it? And that's where you guys come in. It's about helping them grow a business and not a job. And that's our biggest problem.
Absolutely. Yeah. If anybody does want to visit the chapter, by the way, as you know, Pete, I'm a member of Technal BNI. So either have a word with me as well and drop me a message on LinkedIn or whatever, or yourself, Pete. Or you can visit www.bniblackcountry.co.uk or www.bnibirmingham.com. Is that right? .com and .co.uk.
Yeah, I think we own all four, the .coms and .co.uk.
Oh, you got choice. You can visit anyone you want, and you can just simply book. And you're right, Pete. When I first went there was 10 people in the group, and it was such a welcoming group. And I say to Andy now, people have become good friends as well. So you do send business towards your friends. Right, let's talk about your business. For those listeners here as well, we've also got Andy Hemming. You haven't said much during this.
Makes a change, doesn't it?
Yeah, usually you don't shut up, do you? So there you go. Is there any questions you'd like to ask Pete?
I think the first one actually is, it's a hot topic, isn't it? The last 6 months or so. So how's the business changed? Actually, I'm going off script, which is most unlike me.
Yeah. I'm sure it is.
How's your business changed over the last 6 months? What opportunities
are
you seeing?
I'm a big believer with, change is one of those things that has to happen, because without change we don't progress. So I think change brings opportunity, but this change was just thrust upon people. So we go through that natural kind of the Kubler-Ross curve and the panic stages initially, but the reality is that beyond that, you start looking towards How do we get through this? What's the outcome? What do we want it to be? I think the government's helped a lot. The furloughing, etc. The government help has put some people at ease at after the initial stages. But we've seen a turnaround where people have said, okay, look, it is what it is now. We need to move forward, and we need to keep going and grow a business. You can't. 3 months was the original kind of estimate, if you remember. Everybody was like, it's only going to be 3 months. So they think, we can cope with that. We can put a bit of money aside, and we can muddle on through. So I think some people left their network and thought, I'll come back when it's face to face. But what really happened was people kind of it went longer and longer, and those that stuck with it really turned it around and pivoted. So we saw a lot of those businesses saying, look, what was originally 10% of my business is now become like 90%. So they can really focus on that. And the ability to be able to change your business as the ones that have survived or not. And there are other people that have just forward booked and said, look, I am struggling, but I've got the forward bookings for in the future. I think the problem is where those industries have been hit so hard that the knock-on effects, like the events industry, hospitality industry, just as they're coming back and whatever else, and you get this second potential lockdown or kind of certain disruption. But in the main, believe it or not, we carried on passing over 1.5 million a month in BNI in the March, April, May. On average, £1.5 million a month, and then in July and August, it's up to £3 million a month. Brilliant. So if you think about the amount of business being passed amongst our members is still around 3 million a month. There is clearly business out there. I guess it's about being part of a network, and as Lewis said there, it's about having that trust amongst people that you can call on and say, guys, I need some help. And the people that are going to say, what can I do? How can I help? Not, well, it depends what it is, and I've got hundreds of stories from this lockdown where people have rallied together. It's been amazing. So I think the key is having a network, and I don't mean necessarily business networking or a group, etc., but having a network of people that you can trust and call upon. And certainly BNI has been like a family to each other. Each group and also the region have really pulled together. So
you wouldn't want that, right?
Yeah, well, you see the difficult times, and that's where you need people the most, isn't it? So the old saying, a friend in need is a friend indeed. So
I think it's really interesting. I'm just going to crystallise that point, actually, because I was having a conversation just with somebody just before we jumped on this call, actually, Pete. And I'm going to call it the sweeping generalisations that people are making about, everybody's getting rid of people and nothing's growing and all that kind of stuff. But actually, and I talked about this last time round when we went through the recession. It's just an average, right? So there are always people growing and there are always people going backwards, and never the twain shall meet. Really, that will always happen, and the average will always be the average, whether it's plus a bit or minus a bit. So for me, what we're really getting to grips with here is the fact that actually you build strong relationships, and there are opportunities always. Full stop.
Yeah.
So why wouldn't you want to be?
I think it's a mindset, isn't it? We you hear it a lot, and it's it's very difficult for somebody who's got no business coming in to think that it's their mindset that's holding them back. But one of the biggest things in networking face to face, even prior to COVID kind of thing, is the attitude you go in with. I was saying to Lewis earlier, I get asked a lot when I do various networking talks and whatever on what's the biggest one thing you would say to anybody networking. I said, smile. Do you know what? It's the most missed off thing. You don't want to be remembered as the miserable so-and-so in the corner of a room. You want to have that positive attitude. And it's amazing how people react to you and warm to you. So it's a natural feeling when you come with a smile on your face. So attitude plays a huge part, but in all types of businesses, not just networking. But you want to grow your business, you want to come across right to people. It's that smiley, positive attitude. People want to be around positive people. They don't want to be sucked dry with the negativity in a room. So, for me, the businesses that have succeeded through this have turned it to a positive attitude and said, look, where there's change, there's opportunity.
Yeah, agreed.
And that's where you've got to take it. Not where there's change, there's I'm going to lose my business, it's woe me, and negativity. Negativity breeds negativity, positivity, the opposite.
Yeah, quite agree. Absolutely. Just thinking about the challenges though, since you started this business, 7 years ago now. So what's been the number one challenge that you've had to overcome?
The culture, I think. So Ivan Meisner, the founder of BNI, 35 years ago, has a simple saying around the world. It says, "Culture eats strategy for breakfast." And the reality of that is that people assume that you can put a whole strategy of what you can do, but if you do it to the wrong people or in the wrong mindset, then it's immaterial. So I think first and foremost, I had to change the culture in BNI in the area that we were in, and we inherited. I wish I inherited. I bought the region that was. It cost me a small fortune, but there you go. So we bought the region that was in a place where, and it wasn't the owner per se at the time. It was the region, and BNI itself worldwide had a perception of rules, and you have to do and you must do, etc. And part of that accountability helps drive your business. You've got to be there every week because that means your profile's raised and people get to know you. But it was, if you're not, you've got to do this. And I was like, that's where I had to bring in the caring side of it and say, guys, why aren't they there? So ascertain the reasons first and not go to the rule book first. And I use a story in my corporate world. We had a contract, and I won't say who at this time, but we're negotiating the contract, and they're for a lot of money, and they're going through the clauses and wanted to change something. I said, yeah, change it. And I went, the next one says, yeah, change it. I said, you've been very accommodating. I said, look, if that ever comes out the drawer, our relationship's dead, and we've both got very, very large solicitors that we've paid a fortune to get us out of the contract. So what's the point in arguing if the relationship's not there? And he turned to the back page, signed it, and passed it to me. Said, you're right, done. And that contract never came out the drawer because of our relationship. So, go to the reasons, not to the letter of the contract. And that's kind of what I had to change the culture on. So now, and I can say that till I'm blue in the face, but until a situation arises that I follow it up and people believe it, it's immaterial. So that takes time to change culture, because actions speak louder than words.
Yeah.
So, That was my biggest challenge, is getting people, and still is, because people come from, I was in BNI years ago, it's this, it's that, it's the other. And now I'm not having to say it. Members like Lewis are there saying, it's absolutely not like that. Come and have a look. And when people see it, they go, oh, wow, this is different. So I think that's where we're different. And the other thing, there's a lot of other networks out there, and I've never once been negative to any other. I think there's a place for all of them. And I think they all have their merits. Some you will like, some you won't, for various reasons. The same with BNI. It won't be for everybody. Some people don't like the commitment. Some people don't like to have a structured environment. That's what makes the world go around. Not everything is right for everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, we've talked a lot about culture over the. We did a podcast on it a couple of weeks ago, and we talked a lot about it on Mindset Monday. And it's quite interesting, isn't it? Because whenever we think about behavioural change, what we're really talking about is a cultural change, which underpins that, and that just does not happen overnight.
Yeah.
And you build a culture, or it builds itself.
Yeah, really interesting.
Well, that's an interesting. Sorry, Lewis, I couldn't. But that's something I said on leadership as well. So the reality, if you don't lead and become the leader, a group of individuals will find a leader themselves, because it's human nature to gravitate towards leader, following that leader. Mm-hmm. So it's a pack mentality when you get into large groups, that they look for the natural leader of the group. And then leaders come to the fore as well. So for me, looking for leaders of groups and whatever, you're looking for that person who gravitates respecting the other members, but can also lead them and actually do the right thing. So I think both of those go hand in hand. So the culture and the leadership, we needed to step up and get other people to step forward. Otherwise, they'll find their own leader and go in their own direction.
Yeah, so you probably starting to partially answer my next question, Pete, but maybe you could expand on it a little bit, in terms of if culture was the biggest challenge, how did you go about overcoming it?
Yeah, I guess I'll go back to actions speak louder than words. So where an opportunity arose to, so for instance, this was, and I'm hasten to add, it's kind of not the culture in BNI across the country now, but when I first came into BNI, there was a message went out from a fellow ED somewhere down south, who said, a medical. So we give a medical. If you can't be at a meeting you've got a medical condition, your bereavement, etc. It covers a multitude of things where it's just, you know what, BNI shouldn't be your priority to be at the meeting. There are other things, you know, and I don't mean just, I fancied a week off. But where it's genuine condition, we say there's a medical leave, and it's agreed with the membership committee. So they, to stop people just using as an excuse, they said, well, it has to be pre-agreed with the membership committee of that group before you have it. It's not for a car accident on the way to the meeting. And I was aghast. I was like, wow. So you would mark somebody as absent from the meeting if they had a car accident on the way in. And it was very, very simple things like this that we turned around massively. But it was that was exactly why BNI got a bad name. It was the rule book being followed instead of why. So we, every time we had a situation arose and said, what should we do? We didn't go back with a rule. We went back with well, why are they doing that, or what's the reason? So we wanted to better understand the individual and make it an individual thing. So eventually the groups themselves started to ask that question before they asked me. So it didn't end up going to rules. It ended up going, well, what would Pete want to do, or what would be the right thing to do? And I always think, you know, there's an old saying, isn't it? Treat others as you'd like to be treated. And that was, you know, the difficulty is that as people have been trained in a certain way for years and years, or they're, you know, for instance, HR directors, and they're not all like this, I hasten to add, I'm not blanketing them, but some HR people would say, you have to do this rule to everybody. My view in my corporate world is everybody's an individual. Just because I treat one person one way doesn't mean I now have to treat the other 600 employees in the same way, because they've all got different circumstances and reasons. So I think that's, you know, taking it to individuality was the biggest way to change the whole culture. And then that was just unfortunately, it's not an overnight process, because, you know, people don't always have situations to use. So, you know, that just took a little bit of time where they started to realize things were different. So I'd say that took 12, 18 months. And that's just keep chipping away. And keep talking to people and keep kind of doing the right thing, and eventually they do it naturally.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, some really good stuff in there. Culture for me is fascinating, isn't it? And it's one of those things, you know, you mentioned keep chipping away. And that's what we have to do, keep chipping away. There's a great saying that I quote to clients, you know, people respect what you inspect. Comes out of a really cool book, The Ultimate Sales Machine. And I think it's so important, isn't it? We have to check people on this stuff and make sure that they're actually sort of behaving in the right way. It's that accountability you've mentioned, really, and done consistently, because you can't just say this is how it's going to be and just expect it to be. Doesn't happen. Yeah. We have
John Maxwell speaking at our conference this year as well, and he wrote the book, The 5 Levels of Leadership. And I think it's amazing kind of thing as a leader and as an expert in leadership. And one of the things on there, it starts with position. And I've seen it so many times in different organizations that people, they're the boss, but they're not the leader. And the reality is they take the position and they think automatically they can tell people what to do. But without the relationship, they can't take them on the journey and deliver the results. And if they deliver the results before having the relationship, people will say, well, I did that without you. Yeah. So, you know, it's getting at each stage on the 5 levels of leadership at the, you know, finish that stage before you go on to the next one. And the reality is that you know, I can think of every business now that I've ever been in or run, that is true for every business. And if it's not with you or your employees, it's with you and your customers. And, you know, you don't have a business without customers. So I think it's about following that. And that's what we tried to do with BNI is, look, first of all, I needed the relationships. If we're going to go on this journey, I need to get to know the people and every single member in the region. And as I get to know them, I say, guys, this is what we'd like to do. Are you with me? And when the majority were on board, that's where we took it to the next level.
Yeah, brilliant.
So, I mean, 7 years into having your own business, as it were, having come out of the corporate world, what would you say your biggest learning has been?
That's a good question. So, from corporate to my own business, I guess it's and I did this in corporate, but the trust in people, that as you grow a business, you've got to let that trust and let them do their own way. Too many leaders, I think, try and mold people into their way of thinking. I would do it this way, so you need to do it this way. And actually, there's more than one way to skin a cat. So I think, the big thing for me is making sure that people develop in their own way. They understand the culture, but actually they deliver it differently, and allow that, because otherwise you just won't mold 10 Peter Higgses kind of thing, and God, the world wouldn't want it anyway. But yeah, you just need everybody to be an individual and use that, because the different learning styles. That's the other thing, is when you build a bigger team, is that how they interact due to their learning styles is very, very enlightening when you understand that. So we've done a lot of work with each other on different learning styles and what people need. So how you take information in, but how you deliver it to somebody who takes it in a different way to the way you're used to delivering it. So that's I would say that the biggest success and the biggest learning kind of thing is the team and how the team interacts. And I think it's the biggest reason that larger businesses succeed well is they get a good team around them.
Couldn't agree more. I mean, get a great team running a good system or a great system, and you've got a great business. That's it.
Yeah.
I think it's a really interesting mindset shift, isn't it? Because when we start our business, we've got to think we're pretty good, because we'd be pretty bloody stupid to start a business if we didn't think we were any good.
Yeah.
Let's be fair. But that mindset shift from I've got to be the best at this to actually other people have got to be better than me at this is one that a jump that a lot of people can't make, actually. So
I was going to say, there's a lot of people out there who can't take on people better than them. They fear that they're going to overtake them or leave, etc. We joke about we're part of a learning organisation as well. We've got a lot of content out there over the 35 years, and there's an old saying of an FD going panic to their boss and saying, guys, what if we teach them all this and we pay all this money for training and they leave? And the MD says, what if we don't train them and they stay? Yeah. And that's the worry. But most bosses that fear the better quality people are actually just always going to stay at that level or below.
Yeah. Got to commit ego side.
Yeah, so we I'm really proud of my team and continue to be as we're growing. And I think the other thing is don't race the growth, because it has to be manageable according to what the team can deliver and what the next stage. So I always look at my business of look where we are now, but I'm always looking at where we're going to be. So you've got to be that one step ahead of you've got to be delivering what next year is going to deliver and keep focused on it. Now, obviously, you can't lose where you are. But the reality is, if you're focusing on where you are, you're only going to ever move backwards. Yeah. So you've got that one step ahead, and the team has to be one step ahead. So if I'm looking to grow by next year, I need a bigger team and a team that can do different things that are going to deliver for next year. Of course, you need to get that in place now, because it's too late if you're already trying to deliver and modify your team. Yeah,
completely.
So keeping that growth curve ahead of you.
That's a whole other interview, isn't it?
Yeah, sorry.
So last question from me, I guess. Because with the benefit of hindsight, we can sit here and look at our experience since having a business. If there was one thing you could change or do differently, what would it be?
So when I first came into Birmingham, the way I was taught originally to grow new chapters and bring BNI to new groups was painful, if I'm honest, and it took us over 12 months. So I listened too much to the way it had been done, rather than taking my experiences and the team's kind of know-how and said, how do we disrupt this? How do we do it differently? And we started on this. We're in a position of one of the major disruptions of the century, but disruption's key to growth as well. So the reality is, I should have disrupted the way things were done earlier and gone with my gut instinct. But because it was difficult, I focused on other areas and started probably 18 months later than I would have done to launch new groups in a different way. And what I mean by that, we used to take 2 or 3 people and then say to them, who do you know, and build a group slowly. And it went out too long. So now we're looking at 10 or 12 people that we bring to the party, or we go out to find as a group. And then we kind of talk to them about one connection each. Because the reality is, it's not about, making everybody, it's not whipping the horse at the first hurdle, if you like. It's kind of, maybe the last hurdle, you just want to win the race, but it's got to be in sight. And I think that's what we did wrong. So we changed that recently, and we're always learning. Every single launch is a new learning experience, but that makes it launch a lot quicker. I mean, we did the group that Lewis is in. I think it took longer than we would have liked, but that was also allowing for COVID. So it was 6 months and COVID within all of that. Without COVID, I'm sure it would have just launched much more, 6 months ago almost. So I think the allowed, just don't be frightened of disruption or change, and use your experiences as best you can for that.
I think if I were to read between the lines on what you've just said, what you're really saying is just be authentic, isn't it?
Be yourself. I think because it was franchised, I listened a bit to, it must be done this way. And one of the things that we brought to the table is that we've ended up disrupting the whole of BNI across the UK and beyond. I'm on several committees on what we call the Founders Circle. So there's about 50 directors that help the CEO kind of as a group, and then on the Innovation Task Force, which is another just 4 executive directors from around the world and 4 national directors that look at how we can innovate and change in BNI. Yeah. And that disruption and change that I'm part of now has become because we've disrupted in the way we do things in the UK, and we've grown every year for the last 7 years. Yeah. And it's because we've kind of said, look, we can't do things the same. One of our core values in BNI is traditions and innovation. And people think, well, you can't have one without the other. But look, we need some of our traditions, things we've always done. And we stand by them. And there's things that never change, which is where all these sayings come from. But they're also, continually looking to improve. And that's where the innovation comes in. Yeah, really. And being able to do this on Zoom, where previously we were face to face, the fact that we pivoted so quickly and came out with, and offered it to everybody for free, because it's it's a small cost in the scheme of it. It was just an ingenious move, really.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, very cool. Thanks. Really interesting what you're saying, Pete. I'm just listening in while you and Andy had that conversation then. And
you said Andy was quiet for a minute there.
Yeah, actually, I told you if I let him talk, I can't get a word in edgeways again. So yeah, it's really interesting that we started this by talking about networking with BNI, but you've gone into so much depth here about culture, leadership, disruption, sticking to the core values. These are things that we speak with business owners in coaching quite often. So what you were saying here is, Pete, is that you're seeing it in a totally different sort of organisation, where your organisation works with like 600 business owners, and you cross 600 business owners' path every week, and you're saying that you're singing from the same hymn sheet as what we sing in coaching. So I think that goes to say that this stuff is universal principles that you're saying here.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and I've worked in corporate world and I've worked in small businesses. So the reality is that a lot of the stuff that we're talking about, people assume is very different when you get to a large business.
Yeah.
And an old finance director of mine, when I was first starting out, I moved from a company from like a 3 million turnover to 100 million turnover, and the systems were almost simpler. And I was a bit perplexed, and I said, well, this is really easy. He said, look, the numbers are bigger, the systems don't have to be. And that's kind of where I think, when we grow a business, people's perceptions versus the reality, you don't need to overcomplicate things.
I'm glad someone else is saying that, not just you and me, Andy.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
It's really
sorry,
cool.
guys. I'm talking more about your coaching than.
No, it's really cool as well what you said about the disruption. How you took like the Black Country and the West Midlands, and you said to me as well in a private conversation, Pete, that the people in the Black Country are so. They work differently in business. They're so loyal. They want to. Not that everybody else isn't, but people have a more connection in the Black Country. People want to have that.
Yeah, I think it is very much the culture, as we said earlier, is the way you're brought up. So culture is much more of a sum of your life experiences to date, and that's very hard to change over a long period of time, or certainly over a short period. So that in the Black Country, you're brought up, like you say, very community led. So I've been to, so cities, both London and Birmingham, and working in city environments is very different. So people are quite willing to move, and it's like, look, what, I can earn £1 more over there, I'll go over there. You wouldn't get that much in the Black Country. Like, I'm loyal to this firm, I'll stay here. It's not about the money. And I'm not saying it's, universal and sweeping across negative other areas either. But the reality is that change for me, I saw a lot in the Black Country, that loyalty factor. And it's loyal to each other. That's the thing. So, and as I said to you when I started, when I said, Joe and I don't, but if he's close enough to you and I trust you enough, Joe's going to be a good friend of mine. And that's where I think the difference comes in. And that's networking to its truest value to me. Yeah. So I think we recognise that. And because I say Black Country born and bred, the reality is that I've enjoyed that element, and I've started to expand the Black Country because of it. So we've actually grown to a level the Black Country's never been at. And I think we've been, like I said, the number one in the country, but the fastest growing franchise in the last 2 years, because we kind of were welcomed in open arms, because of the culture we were already in. And we knew it.
You're doing something right then. It's very similar with this podcast, isn't it, really? The amount of listeners we have listen to this podcast, and they go and share it with their friends, or, they give it a like or a subscribe. And they go, the reason I like your podcast so much is that it's not all this Americanized stuff that we always keep hearing. Even London, there's a lot of content creators in London perhaps, but to have it in the Black Country of what is actually working right here. The stuff you've just given us, by the way, Pete, that's unique to the Black Country. You've there given us evidence of you've took BNI, you've put your Black Country twist on it, and now you're one of the most successful people in the area in making that happen.
Yeah, we just love it. And I think that the one thing I say about networking is you've got to be passionate about your business, because nobody else is going to be if you're not.
Yeah.
And that energy and passion is what people feed off, and they want to be around that positivity. So we are very passionate about. I love this business, and I don't think I've been in the business so long that I've still kind of almost growing love to what I do. But I found that niche area I really love, and I met an old friend of mine who works one of the big retailers in London last year. And I started talking to him about BNI. He goes, "You really love this, don't you?" And I went, "I actually do, yeah." I think it surprised him quite how passionate I was, considering I came out of a corporate world. But yeah, I just found something I love. And I think that's for me, the relationships and the people, and every day is different. Every day brings a new challenge, positive and negative, but actually it's different people in different walks of life, and you're helping people. So, what a way to live your life.
Absolutely. And now you're leveraging your team to do the same as well. Right. Thank you, Pete. Thank you for coming on. There's so many different learnings on there. So great learning. Wouldn't you agree, Andy?
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, really good.
It's been a pleasure, guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.